In part 1, we uncovered the psychological wounds driving today's most powerful leaders, the need for control, legacy, and identity. But now we go deeper. This isn't just about who they are, it's about what they represent in all of us, because these leaders don't just shape nations. They embody archetypes: the hero, the tyrant, the trickster, the redeemer, symbols we subconsciously project onto the world to make sense of chaos. Jung called them the blueprints of the human psyche. And the more unstable the world becomes, the more desperately we reach for these symbols, craving certainty, control, and meaning. In this second chapter, we're not just studying leaders, we're decoding the roles they play in our collective mythology. This isn't politics, this is prophecy. Welcome to part 2, the archetypes behind the mask. 7th, Viktor Orban, Hobbesian fear and the myth of the protector. To many Hungarians, Viktor Orban is a patriot, a man who stands up to Brussels, protects Hungarian identity, and resists the liberal elite. To others, he is the architect of Europe's first illiberal democracy, who dismantled checks and balances, silenced dissent, and stoked xenophobia for personal gain. Thomas Hobbes believed that in a world without order, humans descend into a state of chaos, a war of all against all. The solution: a powerful sovereign who can ensure peace by any means necessary. Orban fits this mold. His rhetoric frames himself as the sole defender against chaos, migration, globalization, EU overreach. His Fidesz party rewrote Hungary's constitution. The judiciary, media, and education sectors have been systematically reshaped to reflect Orban's vision. Supporters see strength, critics see soft authoritarianism. But Hobbes reminds us fear is currency, and Orban is masterful at spending it. The 2015 refugee crisis provided a perfect opening. Orban built border fences and claimed Muslim immigrants threatened Hungary's Christian values. To his base, this wasn't xenophobia, it was survival. Hobbes would understand this trade: freedom for fear's relief. Yet even Hobbes warned that the sovereign must protect the people, not just from external threats, but from himself. Orban's manipulation of cultural memory, revisionist history, and nationalism creates an echo chamber where he is always the hero and the opposition is always chaos. This isn't just policy, it's psychological. A society conditioned to fear will cling to the illusion of safety, even if that safety means surrendering their voice. Orban becomes not merely a politician, but a father figure in Hobbesian disguise. The Hobbesian protector narrative grows riskier as the EU pushes back. When fear fails to unify, what comes next? 8. Justin Trudeau, Rousseau's noble persona and the crisis of authenticity. Justin Trudeau is the ultimate political paradox. To fans, he's the progressive prince, a global symbol of inclusion, feminism, and environmentalism. To critics, he's a virtue-signaling hypocrite, a man whose polished image conceals contradictions, corruption, and performative politics. Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that modern society corrupts our natural goodness. We wear masks to gain acceptance, suppressing who we truly are. Trudeau's politics often read like Rousseau's prophecy. The more he projects the noble ideal, the more he becomes a prisoner of that projection. Take his infamous blackface scandal, or the SNC Lavalin affair, where he pressured his justice minister to shield a company from prosecution, undermining his brand of ethical leadership. In both cases, the public saw not the fall of a villain, but the fracture of a persona. His speeches often center around values, but are short on details. His apologies are frequent, polished, tearful. For some, they're sincere. For others, they're theatrical. This isn't to say Trudeau lacks conviction, but that conviction is filtered through an intense need to be seen as good. Rousseau would argue that Trudeau is less an individual than a mirror, reflecting the values of the audience he needs at the moment. And while this wins elections, it erodes trust. The more one performs virtue, the more the performance becomes suspect. Trudeau's tragedy is not corruption, but the collapse of the ideal he built around himself. The noble persona, Rousseau might say, is still a mask. His challenge is authenticity. 9. Emmanuel Macron, Camus' absurd hero and the limits of reason. Emmanuel Macron is hard to categorize. A centrist in a polarized age, a former investment banker who quotes philosophy, a man who tries to blend globalism with French exceptionalism. His supporters see brilliance. His critics see arrogance. Albert Camus described the absurd, the human desire for clarity in a world that offers none. The absurd hero is one who lives without illusion, who persists in the face of chaos. Macron might be the closest modern example. During the Yellow Vest protests, Macron faced a moral dilemma: address economic injustice or preserve structural reform. He chose austerity, and the country exploded. His speeches emphasized data and future vision. Protesters wanted empathy and present relief. Macron governs like a technocrat in a myth-making age. He wants to modernize France, digitize services, and balance liberalism with national pride. But Camus would warn that reason is not enough. People live through symbols, not spreadsheets. His attempts to ban hijabs in public spaces and centralize power alienate both progressives and conservatives. His support of pension reform sparked mass strikes, yet he insists on pushing forward, not because he's out of touch, but because he believes deeply in Enlightenment ideals. Macron is Camus' Sisyphus, pushing the boulder of reason up a hill of public emotion. His flaw is not logic, it's the refusal to acknowledge that in politics, narrative often trumps truth. The absurd hero continues climbing. But will the French public accept reason over rage? 10. Javier Mele, Ayn Rand, Anarchy, and the Fragile Messiah Complex. Javier Mele exploded into Argentine politics like a Molotov cocktail thrown at the establishment. To supporters, he's a libertarian savior, a truth-teller railing against socialism, central banks, and the political caste. To critics, he's a volatile ideologue who romanticizes chaos and lacks the temperament for leadership. Ayn Rand, the patron saint of radical individualism, might admire Mele's moral certainty. He positions himself as the lone rational actor in a corrupt world, righteous, unbending, heroic. But Rand also warned of the dangers of unchecked ego dressed up as philosophy. Mele's theatrical speeches, explosive rants, and proclamations about talking to his dead dog, who advises him on politics, may reflect not just ideological rebellion, but a psychological need to be seen as a chosen one. Jung would call this the Messiah complex, the belief that only you can save a corrupt system. Yet even revolutionaries are shaped by trauma. Mele grew up amid Argentina's cycles of collapse. His hatred for central banks is not just economic, it's personal. To him, inflation isn't theory, it's theft. His rage is real. His solutions, dollarization, state abolition, are radical. But is he a liberator, or a bomb with a fuse no one can predict? To many, he's the cure. To others, he's the next illness. Either way, his rise reveals the public's desperation to be saved by someone willing to burn everything down. 11th, Nayib Bukele, Machiavelli, the digital strongman, and the illusion of clean hands. Nayib Bukele markets himself as the cool president, a millennial in a backwards cap tweeting memes and locking up thousands of gang members. His popularity in El Salvador is sky high. His critics, however, see an emerging autocrat who erodes democracy under the banner of order. Machiavelli would understand him perfectly. "It is better to be feared than loved," he wrote, "if you cannot be both." Bukele seeks both and might be succeeding. His crackdown on gangs drew praise, but the sheer scale, over 70,000 arrests, many without trial, hints at something deeper: the construction of the world's largest prison, the indefinite state of exception, the militarized cities. They are not just policies, they are performances. To the fearful public, he's a savior. To rights groups, he's a violator. Bukele says the old ways failed, that democracy is a luxury when blood runs in the streets. But Machiavelli warned, the prince who uses fear must never cross into hatred. If Bukele's prison state backfires, admiration could morph into revolt. He's building a legacy through spectacle, but like any illusionist, the real trick is what we don't see, and the longer the curtain holds, the more dangerous the reveal may become. 12th, Vladimir Zelensky, Jung's Archetypes and the Burden of the Hero's Journey. Zelensky is the ultimate narrative twist, a comedic actor who became wartime president. To Ukrainians and much of the world, he is a symbol of courage, defiance, and democratic resilience. To some skeptics, he is still a performer, more Churchill cosplay than statesman. Jung might frame Zelensky as an embodiment of the hero archetype. Unexpectedly thrust into the journey, he must confront chaos, make sacrifices, and inspire a collective identity. From his viral speeches in military fatigues to his addresses before global parliaments, Zelensky has mastered the symbolism of resistance. But the hero role is double-edged. It demands constant struggle. It doesn't allow failure or nuance. As the war drags on, economic strain and political infighting increase. Criticism, once seen as unpatriotic, becomes harder to silence. Jung would warn that over-identification with the hero eventually alienates the self. Zelensky's greatest challenge may not be Putin. It may be what happens if victory arrives. Can the hero return to ordinary life? Or must he remain mythic to preserve the unity he forged? To his people, he is hope. To his enemies, propaganda. In truth, he is both a symbol and a man. And that's the heaviest armor of all. Victory, if it comes, may trap him in myth. Will he return to man, or be forced to remain the symbol? Why do these leaders divide us so violently? Why do some people cry when they speak, and others burn effigies in the streets? It's not just about their policies. It's about what they activate in us. Putin represents the myth of restored glory. Trump reflects our craving for identity, clarity. Xi turns control into comfort. Mele and Bukele represent our hunger for destruction and rebirth. Zelensky becomes the hero we project our hopes onto. But the most dangerous leader of all, the one in your head. Jung said that what we reject in ourselves, we project onto others. That's what these leaders become, vessels for our inner conflict. If we fear our own weakness, we admire the strongman. If we feel unseen, we obsess over charismatic attention seekers. If we're tired of complexity, we worship simplicity, even when it's a lie. If we've lost hope in systems, we cheer for those who burn them down. Every leader we explored is polarizing because they fulfill psychic roles, archetypes, the hero, the tyrant, the father, the trickster, the redeemer, the avenger. And as societies grow more unstable, our psychological needs intensify. We don't just vote for policy, we vote for identity. We don't just analyze power, we submit to it, or fight it, based on unresolved patterns within us. The real tyrant? The unconscious crowd. Leaders rise because the crowd is ready. They mirror our unmet needs, our deepest fears, our fantasies of control or liberation. Freud warned that civilization is built on repressed desire, and that cracks in that repression create eruptions. Jung warned that societies who ignore their shadow become consumed by it. So the question isn't just, why are these leaders so dangerous or inspiring? It's, why do we keep needing them? What hunger makes us build gods, then tear them down? So ask yourself, who do you admire? Who do you hate? And more importantly, why? Because maybe the tyrant you're afraid of is already living inside your mind. If this made you think differently, not just about politics, but about yourself, then that's the work we're here to do. Subscribe now, because the revolution of the mind begins with you. Question everything